Hey, what's up guys, DB here again, and today I'm going to go over the current 10x event for Luria, Fennex, Excruciator, not Drexstar Blood Twin, Inithoi Blood Twin, Multi-Macab, Foley, Bloodgorge, and Salvia. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate them based on early game, mid game, end game, and possible synergies potentially. And with that, I'll see you in the first champion. Alright, and first up we have Luria, attack based, but I see her more as a support than attack based, but let's have a look at her skills. Attacks one enemy, 50% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense, book it to a 75% chance, or a 100% heal reduction, or 30% decreased speed. Now this for an A1 on a non-void epic is pretty handy. The damage, I'm not sure how hard she hits exactly. Damage is probably not significant on an A1, but for an A1 this is pretty good, though you probably want decreased defense, then decreased speed, then heal reduction. We go to A2, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance, 75% chance when booked of placing a freeze debuff for one turn. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. This is a really good skill right here. I've heard it can potentially hit hard. Now I haven't looked at the multipliers, and I have not seen her actually used, but that's just what I've heard. Now, very useful. Block revive, especially on an AoE, can potentially be really good, and the freeze also really good. Go A3, attacks one enemy, removes all buffs, also has an 80% chance, 100% chance of booked, placing a block debuff for 2 turns. Now, this, since Medeum has come in, this has become like, eh. It can be useful, potentially, but, you know, I wouldn't bother even booking this if I had her, to be honest. Would I book this? Yes. Would I book this? Potentially, depending if you're missing a debuff here. Now, base stats. Low HP, high attack, medium-ish defense for an attack champion, I'd say. Pretty good base speed. Random resist. Not sure why you'd boot her for resist. And, you know, it's an okay accuracy based stat. Now, where would I use her? Potentially Arena, depending on how hard this hit. It's like a mini Foley and mini Shiramani at the same time. But yeah, potentially an Arena. Ice Golem for the Blood Revive here. To be honest, any dungeon really, apart from Spider and Fire Knight, she can be useful. Now, early game, she can be really good, like really good for early game progression because of this and the decreased defense and this decreased speed. Mid game, she'd have uses in mid game, definitely. And then end game, I don't think anyone would really use her end game apart from faction wars potentially for this. That's, again, these are all my thoughts and my opinions. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to disagree with them. It's up to you. This is how I feel. Anyway, let's move on to the second champion. And that second champion is Fennex. Now, I'm potentially going to build one of mine for Faction Wars 21 because I am lacking any sort of decreased defense that's good because I don't have a Martyr or anything. I've only got Errol. Now, base stats. Low to medium HP, high attack, medium defense, getting on the slightly slower end. No accuracy, it's my bad, accuracy. Did resist, not sure why I need that. Anyway, here's his A1. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target has any debuffs, enemies killed by this cannot be revived. For an A1, this is Ice Golem all over the place. You can get him to hit hard, make him A1, it's really good. Even A1 in like Arena, I've seen him played in an endgame arena. Now he can be used in an endgame arena, but You have rotos and stuff now that can do this, so it's like less useful. But you know, for an A1 this is pretty good on an epic. A2 attacks all enemies, 75% chance, 80% chance when booked, placing a block buffs for 2 turns. Places a cooldown, cooldown skills for 1 turn if the skill does not place a block buffs debuff. So you need to book him for the cooldown, but you don't really want that. Interesting. Decreases bomb debuff detonation countdowns by 1 turn when Talia is on the same team. So there is synergy with Talia, but most of the time you won't use this unless in Faction Wars. Now, this is a skill I'm potentially going to build mine for. Attacks 1 enemy, has a 60% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff and 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. This 4 turn cooldown, potentially really good now. Well, for me anyway. The issue is it's on a cooldown for 1 single target decreased defense, and the main thing Sacred Order are missing is decreased defense. Now, I wish he would be an AoE right here, but I've heard this hits like a truck, like ridiculous. Now, how I would rate him for early game? Early game progression would be pretty good because of the block cooldown and the decreased defense that hits really hard, and this for something like progressing an Ice Golem as a block revive. That's my thoughts on Fennecs, and let's move on to the third champion, is Excruciator. Now I remember when she first came out, when Veil was being teased and she was in like a 20k champ training event. I got her and then I never did anything with her because she was pretty meh, but she did get a buff kind of recently. But let's go over her base stats. Low HP, really high attack, lowish defense, slightly slower end on the speed, no accuracy, I don't think she needs accuracy, and 30 resistance. Now, her A1 attacks 1 enemy, damage increases by 20% while attacking under a veil buff, heals this champion by 25% of the damage inflicted while attacking without a veil buff. I haven't seen her multipliers, but if there's this, and good multipliers versus this could be a really nasty A1 if she's under veil. A2 attacks 1 enemy, damage increases by 35% while attacking under veil buff. While attacking under veil buff, enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. While attacking without a veil buff, fully depletes the target turn meter and fills this champion's turn meter equal to the amount of target losers. Can only decrease the turn meter by up to 50% against bosses. This turn meter decrease cannot be resisted. That sounds kind of crazy if you think about it. You can either like one-shot someone if you have Veil, because I'm guessing this is ridiculously hard, but decrease the turn meter, so you slap someone, potentially, you know, kill them, get all the turn meter, and then go into this. That could be really interesting. Alright, and passive. Places a Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn at the beginning of each round. Places a Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn each time they kill an enemy. So that's pretty basic. Now, how I would do this champion, how I would rate this champion is early game. I mean, if you can keep her veiled, she could be pretty useful as like a DPS single target, like slap one enemy that's important to take out first. But that's about it really. Mid game I should say, sorry. I don't really see anything here that someone else could do better. If you have, like, you know, mid game champs slash gear, then end game should just be like a meme champion that you use when you're bored, really. Also, I forgot. I just remembered. I totally forgot to give a rating for Fennex in medium to end game, I believe. Where is he? There. Medium, mid game. Sorry if I went over this, but I feel like I haven't. I feel like I went early game and then just skipped over him. But for mid game, I'll give him, you know, he's alright. He's alright for mid game. And then end game, you know, you'd use him in arena, really. That's about it. Or as a meme comp. Anyway, let's move on to the next champion, which starting off with legendaries now. And that legendary is Nithway Bloodtwin. I personally really want this guy. He looks really fun to use. Now, his base stats, it's got a pretty good HP. One of the highest attack in the game. I think highest is by Sturfus. He's pretty up there. He's got okay defense. Pretty good. Okay, good speed. Good crit damage. Don't really need the res. The accuracy, I don't know if he needs accuracy. He might do. Alright, A1. Attacks one enemy, decreases the target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. Now, this can hit hard. This doesn't really mean much, but his passive can make this viable. A2. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Damage increases equal to the percentage of HP the target has lost. This can demolish someone like a Rotos. It hits her really hard. All 3 hits, and it can just destroy Rotos. And if you book it, that's a lot more damage. A3. Attacks all enemies. 80% chance of placing a leech, 100% when booked. Now, this, I think it's on the lower end of nuke damage, which is why it plays as a leech. But you know, of course, if you can build them to do damage, then that doesn't really matter. But yeah, it looks interesting. Now, just passive. Heals this champion by 30% of the max HP each time they kill an enemy. This doesn't really matter if he gets one shot anyway. Enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived. All these skills here. This is why the AV doesn't do as much damage as well. Attacks all enemies, boom. Kill 2 out of 4 of them, can't be revived. This can slap, A1, straight up blood revive. And then this, kill a Rotos with this skill, boom, cannot be revived. And then he has an aura of 33% attack. Now, early game, monster. Now, as you've got to be really hard keeping him alive, but for progression, placing a leech, doing more damage to the target as they lose HP, and decrease. This doesn't really matter, but this can slap hard, and if you're an ice golem, just spam it and block revive everyone. Yeah, early game is pretty good. Mid game, also really good. Really good champion. And end game, he's also extremely good for arena. He also has like a weird one. Had to point that out. Anyway, yeah, I really like this guy, and I really hope I pull him one day. Alright, let's move on to the next champion. Here he is, Mortu Macab, one I actually own this time, and I use. Now, he was my very first legendary that I pulled. It's kind of funny how I pulled him actually. It took me 2 or 3 weeks of 12-3 brutal with this boss, Mortu Macab. I needed this to 3-star everything and get the Sacred Shard. 2 or 3 weeks it took me to beat this guy. I beat him, I got the Sacred Shard, ripped open that Sacred Shard, boom, first legendary. I thought it was pretty funny. And I've put so much silver into this guy, it's ridiculous. Anyway, onto his base stats. 23k HP. It's up there in the HP champions, not with the newer ones, but with like when he came out, that was really high. Attack, that's pretty low considering he has some skills based off attack. Defense, quite low. Speed, getting on the lower end side there. And then 40 resist and no accuracy. Now, his skills: attack one enemy, 60% chance of placing a hero reduction for 2 turns, 85% chance to place that if it's booked. Mine is fully booked, as you can see. Attacks all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 90% chance of placing a block buffs, debuff for 2 turns, 100% when booked. He used to be like 50%. The block buffs debuff cannot be resisted if a target is under a heal reduction. This can be really strong with someone like a Ghostborn. And I have both of them. I've been testing it out, it's pretty good. Now, this is what gets a lot of people. 20% chance to unlock a secret skill, Peril for 1 turn. Also has a 20% chance to fill this champion to turn meter by 25% when attacked. This is lethal. I've been in 3v3 arena with this guy. They went first, they killed my whole team, except for him. He came back, peril, 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 boom. It was incredible. And this is what the peril skill is. Attacks one enemy 2 times, will ignore shield, and block damage, as well as the defense. Enemies killed by this cannot be revived. This hits extremely hard, like double. I think mine hits right now with no weaken, no affinity advantage, double 60,000, and he's not like built for really high damage. Now, would I rate him for early game? Really, really good for progression, because you can stick him in a shield set, you can make him really, really slow in that shield set, so nobody takes damage, and he's getting hit a bunch of times before he gets a turn, and he can unlock this skill. And even with that crit or crit damage, this skill can hit really hard. So for early game, it is really, really good. Mid game, I don't see crazy amounts of use for mid game here. Potentially as some sort of tank nuke for arena, or a debuffer for dungeons when you're getting in like the 17-18 areas. And then I forgot to say this, he has a really good aura for speed if you don't have like an arbiter. But yeah, for endgame, he'd only really be used in arena, maybe Ice Golem for the minions. But I personally use him in arena, and he does a lot. This hits harder than you'd expect it to, and this just deletes people. And even though it's a 20% chance, it unlocks, so like sometimes it won't unlock forever, but sometimes you get like back to back to back. It just delete, 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 easy clap. Anyway, let's move on to the next champion. Champion is Foley, and as you can see, I own 2 of him. Now, there used to be a meme in the raid Discord before he got buffed, because I put 9 books into him. As you can see, I think it was 9. 8 books into him without like remembering me doing it, and I regretted it because I never used him, and none of them hit here. So I've regretted it for so long, and then he got buffed, and now he's an arena monster. Let's get on to his base stats. Pretty okay HP, good base attack, high defense for an attack champion, high speed, good crit damage, resist, accuracy. Now let's go into his skills. Attacks one enemy 4 times, 20% chance of placing 60% decreased defense, 25% chance when booked. You know, that's like an 80% chance on probability, something like that. I'm not going to calculate it. But yeah, that's pretty good. Attack 4 times at random. Each hit has a 35% chance of placing a leech debuff, 45% chance on booked. This is pretty meh in arena unless there's only 1 person alive, because it's really random. Then we go to his, really good skill here. Attacks all enemies, decrease their turn meter by 15%, then attacks a targeted enemy. Enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. With this, now it hits slightly lower than normal nukers, but it hits twice on the enemy you target. So you decrease defense everyone, target the tankiest person, kill the 3 people on the first AoE, with the second hit kill them. And if you don't kill people, you can decrease their turn meter by 15% so they don't go for longer. This is crazy, which is why I have 2. Now its passive heals this champion by 20% of the max HP and boosts the turn meter by 50% whenever the enemy places a stun, freeze, sleep, or provoke. And then immediately removes or stun, freeze, sleep, and provoke on this champion. Currently this is bugged in defense arena, where it has no cooldown, so he'll freeze and unfreeze himself like 50 times until it doesn't freeze him. So he's got like a billion turn meter. This is really good for Torments, but it is currently also bugged in offense, where he can refreeze himself again, and it becomes useless. Now, early game, he can be really good early game for nuking. He can be your nuker, specified nuker. Also, he can be really good in Ice Golem for progression, the book we have here, and decreased defense and leech can also help. Mid game, now mid game is where you can get better gear. We have better gear for nuking. He can become your main nuker. That's pretty much all he'd be useful at that point, I think. You wouldn't really take him in clan boss unless you're missing a decreased defense and a leech and you want to not take lifesteal. That end game, he just straight up massive nukes where he just destroys everyone. Now if you look at my stats, he can almost take out people without decreased defense a lot of the time because of Savage, and I don't even have Helm Smasher because my stats aren't crazy. Yeah, really good champion all around. Now let's move on to the next one. Another champion I own that's currently not really geared anymore, Bloodgorged. Now, the reason he's not geared anymore is because of Rotos. Rotos kind of killed him, to be honest. Though, with the red Force Affinity Tank medal, he can be used in that regard. Anyway, let's have a look at his base stats. Really high base HP, good high attack, getting on the low side defense, pretty slow speed, and then 40 resist. Go to his skills. Tackle one enemy 2 times, 55% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns, 75% chance for booked. That's pretty good. That's really good for an A1. E2 attacks all enemies. Put one of each target skills onto cooldown. Now, this hits really hard. Though this is RNG, it can be really useful. I used to use this in arena a lot. Really good. And his main skill, attack one enemy, will ignore defense. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. This is basically a mini version of Rotos, because Rotos gets an extra turn and he ignores everything. Now, early game, amazing. Really good. Decreased defense on the target. Put people's skills on cooldown in dungeons or arena. And straight to extremely hard hit, which in early game is really good. Straight up ignore defense. Mid game, same concept. Really good all around. Like, you can make him a nuker, you can make him a tank destroyer. He becomes just less useful in dungeons as you get better nukers, personally. And for end game, he's outshined by Rotos a lot. So if you don't have a Rotos, then he can be very good, very viable in arena. Yeah, that's Bloodgorged. Let's move on to the next one. Now here's one I don't own, Xavier. I do want to have Bellinor, hoping Bellinor gets a good buff, so if I pull this I can actually use him. Anyway, base stats. Good, very good HP, really high attack, pretty bad defense, high speed, and then the resistance and accuracy. Now, A1. Attack one enemy 3 times, each hit has a 40% chance of placing a 5% poison. This can be really good for clan boss, but her AI ruins her for a later skill that I will show you in a second. Attack all enemies 2 times, each hit has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. 75% chance of unbooked, that's pretty good. That can also be used for like clan boss, but also can hit really hard. Next skill, attacks all enemies. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. Deals damage from all poison debuffs on the target instantly. Poison debuffs will only do half of the standard damage when the skill hits boss. This is insane. This can one-shot bosses, can do massive damage in arena, and then you can't revive them. The only issue is, the damage is capped on clan boss, so if you use auto, she's going to ruin your damage. Last bit, attacks one enemy, places a debuff spread effect, taking 4 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. Only available when Bellinor is on the team. Now, this can be kind of useful, but it's like pretty meh. It's like situational, I'd say. and then 33% attack aura. Now, early game, really good early game. You get the poisons for the clan boss, you get the nukes in arena, you get the stupid high damage with the block revive, all in one. It'll be harder to keep her alive, but as an early game, this is insane. Mid game, also pretty insane, though you will still have to manual her, but she can do really good damage in clan boss, and still nuke in arena, and decimate dungeons. And then for endgame, exact same concept as early and mid game. She's just really good all around, except for the AI on here, on clan boss. Now that is all the champions on this 10x event. I am personally not pulling for any of these, as I have some of them, and I prefer to pull on 2x events unless it's a very top tier champion, like Valkyrie, Marta, etc. But yeah, with that, I hope you enjoy the video. I will be editing for the first time in this video. I hope it's noticeable and it improves this video. And with that, I say, I hope you like the video, leave a like if you did, and adios.